Neama, you're a former prosecutor. This is a case that is very emotional. We're talking about 9 people died in the most horrible way, an entire family in the third fire, including 5 children. I'm sure those kids deserved it. I'm sure that their balls got into Mr. Ford's yard, or the person who burned them home, and therefore they deserve to die this horrible way. But you still got to prove all the elements, and there are 28 counts in this case. You've got to go through all of that foundational stuff before maybe you even get to pointing the direct finger at Stanley Ford.
Michael, I agree, and I agree with Lisa here. I mean, no question this was an arson. There's plenty of evidence of that. You got the video, you have the accelerant, you have 2 houses, you have a vehicle that was burned, you have a failed arson. So there's a lot going on here. But really what the prosecution is doing here is just talking about motive, talking about what a strange, aggressive, angry neighbor Ford was, how he thought he was an angel of God, and doing everything they can to say that, look, he has the motives, means, and opportunity. That's why he did it. But we see very little evidence, really none so far, direct evidence identifying. I'm sure the neighbors didn't like him. He seemed very difficult. He made very disparaging comments about homosexuals. He said that these were drug users, and he really had problems with the folks that lived in his neighborhood. But just like Lisa said, was Stanley Ford the one who killed these 9 people and 5 children? And does he deserve the death penalty? Let's not forget, Ohio is trying to execute this man.
And this is it is a leap from, hey, this is the cranky guy who lives down the street, to this is the guy that set fire intending to kill many of the neighbors in this neighborhood. Scam kind of defense that is, hey, whoever's the beneficiary on the insurance should be looked at very closely here. And in this case, one of the first victims of the first fire, which was in April 2016, was Lindell Lewis. He had an insurance policy, but his ex-wife was the beneficiary. Therefore, she must be motivated to kill him to get the insurance money. Good idea, good plan, worthwhile?
Absolutely. I mean, whenever you're looking at a death, an ex-spouse is someone, or even a current spouse is someone that law enforcement should look into. And there's plenty of other folks that had a motive here, and the defense is doing a good job. You're talking about drug deals. There's a lot of drug-related killings and murders, and that's something that the jury can, connect with. I mean, really, what the prosecution is doing here is you have a very kind of difficult defendant that isn't really likable. I mean, so much so that before the trial even started, the judge was pushing for a competency hearing, but he refused to even meet with doctors. So what the defense is doing is a good job. I like them going after the ex. I like them talking about the drug deals gone bad and just saying, listen, there's no question that arson was committed, but you're focused on the wrong person. There's all these other people that had a motive to do this and would actually financially benefit here.
Yeah, now, Neama, I gave you only one of my 2 arguments there, and you grabbed the second one as well, which I was saving for Lisa. But that one really struck a chord with me, and that is the drug deal gone bad, the drugs not paid for. It could be that he's having this internal conversation, and he says to himself, or so silently, even the mic doesn't pick it up, they'll think I, boom, killed them all, of course. That's possible, and as people got to know this guy, as the jury got to know this guy, maybe not totally impossible to believe that he either thought he said it or said it so low it couldn't be recorded. What do you think?
Michael, it's certainly possible that the jury thinks this, but that's going to take a logical leap, just like the dig note. The jury may well believe that, Bob Durst wanted a snow shovel, and it was Bridgehampton and not a bridge, and not places where he could bury Kathy Durst's body. But ultimately, the jury's going to have to ask themselves, what's reasonable? This is a case about reasonable doubt that's happening down the street from my office. I can see it. And is it reasonable for a mic to just pick up, kill them all, of course, and not they'll think? Is it reasonable for, Bob Durst to just write portions of dig that mean digital? Certainly anything's possible, but it's not reasonable. That's why I really like this case for the prosecution after John Lewin's multi-week cross-examination. He got Durst to admit lie after lie. And just like the opening clip, when Dick DeGuerin asked the first question, did you kill Susan Berman? I thought Lewin effectively ended on that, because even though Durst said he did it, he admitted that he would lie to doing it. And he admitted many, many lies on the stand during cross-examination. So finally, after 40 years, we may be seeing criminal justice for Bob Durst.
This is a practical question first here, Neama, because they do have a jury in place. They have 7 men, 5 women, plus 5 alternates. A lot of folks think federal court, hey, it's a six-person jury, but here we are in federal court, and we've got a full vote. Why is it different?
Well, you got to have 12 for a criminal case. You can have 6 for a civil case. The prosecution still has to get 12-0 out there in San Jose. Another great California case that we're covering, and they've been working on this case for quite some time. This is actually the biggest white-collar or fraud trial since the pandemic.
Isn't that amazing? If for no other reason to hear what her real voice sounds like, is she going to testify?
I don't think she will. I don't think her attorneys will let her. They're going to go with, I didn't know, this was puffery, or it wasn't me. I'm going to blame my ex-COO, Sunny Balwani. Because if she gets up there and testifies, if and when she's convicted, the judge will hammer her because she's looking at a significant guideline range under the guidelines because of the amount of the fraud.
Yeah, it could be very UCLA graduated at 19, Stanford, I'm sorry, oh, I said Stanford, that would be horrible. Harvard Law at age 22. And I appreciate you joining me because I'm sure you're busy splitting the atom or something, got something else to do. But I appreciate you spending a little time with us here today. So, in this case, we have all these witnesses talking about their experiences with Mr. Ford. But at some point, are we crossing some boundary there where it's no longer, it's just bad behavior type testimony, which might be precluded?
Well, Michael, what the prosecution is trying to do is dirty up Stanley Ford, because ultimately he's someone who's not likable. Based on his statements to fire arson investigators before he was arrested and the statements that he's made to court before trial even started. Now, does that make him a murderer? Does that make him someone who killed 9 people? Of course not. But this is something that the prosecution is going to try to do. They're going to use it as motive evidence. But ultimately, that's all we've seen so far. We've seen an angry neighbor, someone who's not likable. And I really need to see some more direct evidence tying him to these arsons. Otherwise, we just have someone who everyone in the neighborhood. And, we heard opening statements from both sides that were relatively short, especially for a death penalty case, but we didn't have any of that direct evidence tying Ford to these arsons. In fact, the prosecution said, well, here's the video. It shows an individual. We admit that we can't prove that it's Ford in this video. And there's a vehicle involved, or at least near the scene. We don't know if they were involved in this arson, but if we do find out they were, we'll prosecute them. Again, not enough to convict Stanley Ford and put him to death yet. Maybe they're going in some order chronologically, or they're sandbagging a little bit, but at this point, it seems like a pretty weak case for the prosecution. We'll see if that changes.
Yeah, let me follow. First-degree manslaughter, it could have been 10 under second degree, and still could be if that's the conviction. What more than that do we have to hang our hats on here with this increased charge?
Michael, I think this is the first time I've ever disagreed with Lisa, like ever, and we've done guests together many times. And it really just depends on the way the law is written. We learned about Minnesota law during the Derek Chauvin case, right? And that third-degree murder charge. That was unique to Minnesota. Most states don't have third-degree murder. But in Minnesota, the way the first-degree manslaughter law is written, it allows for a conviction if there's reckless handling of a firearm. That is first-degree manslaughter. For second-degree manslaughter, you need disregard of great bodily injury or death. So in this particular case, the way the laws are written in Minnesota, Potter's conduct actually fits first-degree manslaughter better because she recklessly handled her firearm.
I mean, is this a believable argument or explanation?
Michael, the three of us love California, but this is a doozy even for Bob Durst. But, he's pulled these Harry Houdini type antics before. I mean, let's not forget how he was acquitted, for murdering Morris Black out in Galveston. I thought even he was surprised, and he has the same defense team. So he had to sort of come up with some sort of theory, and it's a little bit cockamamie, but who knows? The jury may actually believe this old man who could be someone's grandfather, someone's crazy uncle. He sort of is able to spin these lies in a very folksy way. So we'll see if he's successful, just like he was when he was prosecuted for murder last time.
Yeah. I know I'm going to get fried one way or the other. I'm not really guilty, but if it's going to happen, I might as well spend those 5 years or so in California. Sure, why not? So you mentioned Morris Black. Obviously a big part of this case for many reasons, in part because of the gruesome nature of the crime, of which Mr. Durst was acquitted. But John Lewin decided he would play up one aspect of Mr. Durst's story about the dismemberment of Morris Black. Let's watch it.
Mr. Durst, this is a fifth of Jack Daniels whiskey, correct? Is that correct, Mr. Durst?
So.
Well, examine it if you want. Take a look.
I don't need to examine it.
Well,
Who won that battle?
Lewin won, Michael, and I think
Okay.
he's finally going to get justice, Bob Durst, after 40 years.
Okay, Lisa, what do you think?
I think Durst is guilty. I think he's going to jail.
So he didn't help himself in those 14 days on the stand. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. As always, Lisa Lockwood, crime analyst, former SWAT officer from Los Angeles, and Neama Rahmani, former federal prosecutor. She's in San Diego. He's in Los Angeles.